Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Hard Claim with Viva La Sam. I'm Sam, and this is a show where we talk to people who play Blood on the Clocktower and get their player perspective of the game. And joining us for this week's episode is Alexis. Thank you for joining.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. All right, well, we have Bad Moon Rising loaded up here. I don't think we get a lot of guests requesting BMR specifically, so it's always good to have it in every now and then. You've drawn the Mastermind token. So, let's say you and I were chatting day one. What would you claim to me?
It depends on what I'm feeling, but with the mastermind, I probably want to try and look something more. Uh, Probably go for chambermaid or innkeeper, or something that can lay low for a little while anyway.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, so talking about Blood on a Clock Tower, how did you discover the game, and how long ago was that?
So I first heard about it, and I think like halfway through 2021 through NRB, kind of like the wrestling to Blood on the Clock Tower pipeline. My
Right.
wife is super into wrestling and was following Wrestle Talk. And she's like, oh, they made a new board game channel.
Mhm.
And then we saw the Blood in the Clock Tower videos pop up, and I was just like, it seems like a lot. I don't want to watch those quite yet. So we eventually did, and then just sat and watched everything, watched all Pandemonium Institute's backlog. We're like, this game is amazing.
Yeah, and so how did you get into actually like playing? Like, where did you go for that, and how did that go?
Uh, Ran a teensy once with a couple of friends. I was able to get willing to spend some time doing that in like December of 2022, I think. But my first actual game was at Clock Tower Con in DC.
Oh, cool. Yeah, great. Have you
So,
played more? Or how much have you played in person versus online? I guess.
I go to a lot of conventions to play. I have a monthly group that gets together, and then there's another group, semi-local, that I go to every once in a while. That I try and play in person as much as I can, just because I do enjoy it in person a lot more. But I will still play online
Right.
all the time.
Yeah. Do you remember what your first game was like? Like what character you drew, and like just kind of how that went?
I think it was at Clock Tower Con. Me and my wife were just kind of standing there. We didn't know anybody there.
Hmm.
Um, so we're kind of just like taking everybody sitting in the circle, like sitting in circles and stuff. And we're like, how do we even approach a circle? Like, what do we even do? And then uh, Mike Rewind is that kind of sounds fine. He's like, you two, you're not playing. Come. And we sat down and played. I want to say I drew the Undertaker, but I was the drunk, if I remember correctly. That
Classic.
whole weekend was kind of a blur, so all the games kind of melded into each other at this point.
Yeah. So, what after that weekend? What was your takeaway? Like, what? I guess what hooked you about the game once you started playing?
Uh, Puzzle aspect, the community aspect was huge. I
Hmm.
everybody at the convention I met was just amazing, just super nice people, and made friends there that I still talk to now, and it's been great.
Yeah. Do you have any experience with like other social deduction games, like this kind of as a comparison?
Uh, I actually don't didn't like social deduction games very much. I had an experience with one at Ultimate Werewolf years ago that kind of left that bad taste in my mouth for years, so I kind of just
No.
disregarded them. And Clock Tower was when I watched it, I'm like, oh, this like all my little issues with social deception games have been kind of fixed with this one. So this one looks super fun.
Yeah, obviously the selling point's always, I mean, I guess the lack of player elimination is always the biggest thing. Unique characters too, of course. Everybody has their own role. Always good stuff. For you, what's the differences between playing in person versus online?
Social reads are much easier to do in person. It is like I like the general. It's harder to keep notes and harder to keep like a general feel of the game for some players. So like online, you can have meticulous notes of everything going on at once, and it's harder to do that in person. And I kind of enjoy winging it a lot more. And I like when players
Mhm.
are doing that as well.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I know a script like Sex and Violets really sees a bigger difference between online and in person because it's so information heavy. Online, you can take track of everything, and in person, you can keep track of everything, and some people do, but usually it's played not that way. And it's a little different when you're okay. Well, who voted yesterday? Well, I think this player voted, and if you're evil, you could try to lie about it if you wanted to, and be like, oh no, I didn't vote. And, yeah, I always like that difference too. Of course, online does have the advantage of more accessibility to just everybody in the whole world. Always like that aspect.
Me too.
Yeah. All right. So when you sit down for a game, you're about to draw a token. What are you doing? And what are you thinking at that time? Are you just kind of like looking at the script, kind of chilling out? What's going on?
I kind of look at the script to see what possibilities there are and kind of get an idea. Like if I draw evil, what am I going to do right out of the gate? Or
Mm-hmm.
depending on what roles they are, like, oh, I hope I draw this role or something like that. And
Yeah.
then seeing my neighbors and stuff and getting a feel for people around me and whatnot.
Yeah. I always find that helps me kind of relax too, because I'm always nervous about drawing evil. But if you're already kind of just chatting with everybody beforehand, I know for me that helps. But I'm also usually looking at, okay, if I'm good or evil, what am I bluffing as? What am I going to claim? Am I going to claim my role? Am I going to do something different? Yeah, I'm constantly thinking about that. So when you draw out your token, do you prefer that it's blue or red?
That's really script dependent, and how I'm feeling that specific day. There are times where I'm like, yes, I want to be evil. I just want to have a good time. And there are times I'm just like, if I get like a chill townsfolk, oh, it's the best.
Yeah. So how about right now? Right now, you got the mastermind token. How do you think you would approach like this specific game potentially? I know we don't really have players sitting around, but
Yeah.
if we did.
Yeah, I get a feel. If I can talk to my demon, or if we have another minion, if they've got a chance to get bluffs, I'd probably try and do that with this particular character, just because it's more important to maybe try and lay low. But I mean, most of the time people bluff day one anyway, so you can get away with a lot. Just try and
Right.
talk to as many people as I can and try and see what I can pull off to stay alive as long as I can.
Yeah. Do you try to go for a mastermind win like kind of early, or do you just kind of let it play out, however it goes?
I've actually been the mastermind, I think, only twice. And I think both times was just kind of ride it out, like use it as more of a safety mechanism than try and go for a win.
Mm-hmm. I think it was Evan I saw once suggested that people should be trying more for actual mastermind wins. Um, I'm neutral on it myself, I guess, but it's interesting to think about, I guess.
I've seen it be very effective. I ran a game at BMR where just right away, assassin talked to their demon. They, sorry, it was mastermind talked to their demon. I think there was a gospel play or something, but they got demon executed day one, day two. People weren't even thinking mastermind and the slightest bit. And it
Right.
paid off really well. But I've also seen it backfire just as many times.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've been to Mastermind exactly once. And it was a late night convention con, or it was a late night con, local, um, and it was a big game. It was probably about 14, 15 players. There's a traveler. It's a Poe game. I'm sitting right next to my demon, and we're several days in with I think like one person dead because the Poe charged and then a courtier picked them. So that was 3 days. It was like 4 days of like no night kills. And we're probably starting to get to about the hour and a half mark in this game. So my demon's bluffing gossip, so I just had this light bulb moment. I'm like, hey, this guy over here is claiming gossip and nobody's dying, so maybe we should kill him. And my storyteller afterward told me on the inside, he was like, thank you. So we get him executed. The next day, the good goon, wants to just go ahead and be executed, get it over with. We're all happy with that. Nobody's thinking, mastermind. And yeah, he gets the goon gets executed. He's like, I know the night's about to start, but I need to go to the bathroom real quick. And the storyteller's like, well, if you can hold on just a few more moments, the game is over. Anyway, that's my mastermind story. So what kind of characters do you like to play? Do you like to play kind of like information characters, or BMR, for example, is very more passive, not passive necessarily, but light on information. But do you have a kind of like a preference there?
I think on BMR specifically, the only character I'm not excited to get is Sailor, just because I personally find it a little bit dull. But everything else on here, I'm pretty stoked to get.
Yeah. I mean, are there any particular characters you I don't know, have any fun experiences with that you can think of?
I'm a huge fan of the Tinker. I always have been. I
Oh yeah.
love just kind of getting into fight with the storyteller. It's like, do it, you won't, you won't. And Pucka's always fun too. Pucka's always the demon. Like it should be really obvious at this point. The amount of times I've played BMR, that's like you can't put the kills together. You can't like suss out what's happening. It's like, oh duh, it's a Pucka game every single time, and it's such like a light bulb moment when it happens. It's always great. I love Pucka as a demon.
It is. It's by far my favorite BMR demon. Spoiler. I put it in this bag. um, I I know BMR in general. I don't know. I really prefer running it over an SNV, even though I like SNV generally as a script better. Because I like running the mechanics, and Puka is just like right up my alley for that. Harder to play against, but fun to storytell. Are there particular kinds of minions that you like to play over others?
Something that's more of like a one and done, like low responsibility minions are my absolute favorite because you can just kind of go and do whatever you want and you don't have to worry about it too much.
Yeah, it makes me think of like a Baron, for example, from Trouble Brewing, maybe.
Yeah. Also, like I played an assassin game recently. It's a little bit after the acrobat changed to a townsfolk, and I pulled the assassin token. And I was like, I'm bluffing acrobat. I don't care what's happening in this game, and it went so well. Assassinated myself. One of the knights was able to throw a sus on some of the information in the game, and it just went over so well. Yeah, it was just basically like, hey, I'm just here. I kill myself, and it's great.
Yeah, self-killing assassin. Always a classic. So we picked out, or I say we, you picked out Badman Rising. Why the script?
It's my favorite of the base threes. I think it goes without saying that Trouble Brewing is like the best of the base three. But Bad Moon Rising is my favorite of the base three. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Sex and Violets in general. Like, I'll play games, but I tend to like Sex and Violets at like 7 to 8 players more than anything else. But Bad Moon Rising gives me like the puzzle aspect. Like, if you can put the world together and it's like the light bulb moment near the end of the game where you're like, oh, I
Mm.
think this works. I think this fits. It's to me the most exciting of the base three.
Yeah, that makes sense. Something interesting talking about Sex and Violets. Cause I'm curious maybe why you don't like that one quite as much. I know one of the things it introduces is madness. So how do you feel about madness in the game?
I do love it. Like Serenovus is one of my favorite minions.
Mm-hmm.
It's I find Sex and Violets can feel very samey a lot of the time at larger player counts where it seems like, is it a starting Vortox or Fengu game? No, if there's probably a Pit Hag in play. Pit Hag makes a Fengu, makes some outsiders it jumps. Like it's fine, it's good. It's a fantastic
That's
script. I
fair.
do
Yeah,
like playing it, but um, I prefer shorter, sweeter Sex and Violets games.
that makes sense. You mentioned you like Tinker. Is Outsiders in general something you like playing as?
Yeah, I'm totally fine with most outsiders. Like the majority of them are fairly low, like responsibility. Some of
Mm-hmm.
them are just like, hey, don't die, or maybe die early because it's less problematic. So it's like, yeah, this is cool. So you just kind of get a chance to hang out and try and figure out what's going on with the game.
Yeah, and this script has Goon. Do you try to play for evil, or do you try to turn evil if you're, for example, a Goon or some other kind of alignment changer?
I don't think I actively go out of my way to turn evil, but if it happens, like, I'll be evil. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, prepare for what will they say? Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Are there characters that particular kinds of characters you like to bluff as, whether you're good or evil?
I find I tend to bluff lower power characters just because I feel like if you bluff powerful characters, like, you're going to get sussed out way later on, especially if you're alive way later in the game. So I tend to try and go for like mid-rangey or like one and done. Like I love bluffing you start knowings as a demon. Like it's maybe not the best practice, but
I guess it
I
depends
just
on
think
the
it's
group
good.
meta at the time, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I tend to bluff outsiders a lot when I'm evil. I'm trying to move away from that, or generally just like low info, or I'm trying to move away from bluffing low information stuff. Um, and I guess I feel the same way. Like you don't want to get sussed out later, but I guess really also that's not too bad as a minion because your job after all is to kind of be a distraction. But yeah, I'm kind of trying to move away from that meta myself.
Yeah, as a minion, I'll kind of bluff whatever. I'll double claim. I don't really care because yeah, my job is to draw enough suspicion later on in the game, do a little bit of damage if I can, and ultimately be thrown under the bus.
Yeah. So one of my favorite sections in doing these interviews, I like to talk about what I like to call divisive characters. So let's go through this list. One's from Sex and Violets. How do you feel about Snake Charmer?
I think it's very fun. I think it can be a little, you know, love it or hate it.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I think it's super powerful information because you're going to find out who's not the demon. And if you do hit the demon, then hey, it's great for good. Not for you. Great for
Right.
good, though.
Uh, yeah. You either don't learn who the demon is or learn who the demon is. Is it kind of like Goon, where you don't really actively try to turn evil, but it's a possibility.
It really depends on the script. Like if it's something spicy or like a poppy grower or something on it, where there might be a
Oh yeah,
possibility of
yeah.
just like snake charming and being able to fly under the radar enough, then yeah, it could be really fun. But a lot of the
Yeah.
times, yeah, it's like try and clear a few people in late game, just hoping to pick the demon. But hey, you know what? If that happens, it happens.
Yeah. Um, so next character on the list, how do you feel about politician?
I didn't like it at first, uh, but I've grown to really, really like it as an outsider. Like, it is very divisive. People don't like it. I find for fairly like, like it's very understandable reasons. Because you kind of can do some unfun plays for your team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I like what it does to a script, bluff wise. I like what it does to the script, like the area it gives like good players to play in, the space it gives evil players to play into, that you can fall back into things easier, and it's very fun when you do see a politician like truly earn their win.
Yeah. Yeah, we had such a game, and I think Nina still reels from this a bit because she was on the losing side of a politician loss. But yeah, it's hard to do, and I know why some people don't like it. Some people go the opposite way, and they make it easy for a politician to win. It's like, oh well, you voted once for not the demon, so you're evil now. Congratulations. But yeah, all right. How do you feel about Poppy Grower?
I think it's great. I love honestly like getting woken up and told like, hey, you don't know your evil team. It's like, okay, well, this is fine.
Mm-hmm.
I just like the general feel it gives town where it's like you're trying to suss out like it's like voting's really weird. People are being super cagey about stuff. Like this might be a poppy grower game. It's
Mm-hmm.
really fun if you can successfully bluff a poppy grower game as an evil team when it's not. And again, just I love I have a huge soft spot for roles that like kind of change how all players interact with the game for that game.
Well, you'll probably love this list in general then. So let's go ahead and move to the next one. How about Heretic?
Heretic is fantastic as an every once in a while thing, and it's super script dependent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can see why, again, I can see why people don't like some of these roles. But I've had a lot of really fun games with Heretic. I've had a lot of games that are like, it's a frustrating end at the moment, but in retrospect, you can look back and say, no, that was a really fun game, and it's a really hard character to play around, and it's really hard
Mm-hmm.
character to be because like you have to get it out there a little bit. You have to like tell a couple of people, and you have to like keep it down low enough. And it's like that's probably one of the more stressful outsiders to be, but it's also really fun.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge. Also, I'm thinking more generally because obviously I've done a bunch of these interviews by now, and these are divisive characters lists, so opinions do range. But I'm noticing that there's some people who will just say, "Yep, I like it, I like it, I like it." They'll like all these characters, and others are like, Yeah, I'm not really big into it, and it's like there's not a lot of in between, and it's just kind of a something I've noticed more and more is there's just not a lot in between, I guess.
Yeah, very polarizing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of polarizing, next character, how do you feel about Atheist?
Depends on who's storytelling the game.
Yeah, that's
That's
another
the biggest thing.
phrase I hear a lot. Yeah.
Yep, it can be very fun. I For me, that is the most like every once in a while character. It can be very fun, uh, but it can just as easily be like veer off into not fun or like, okay, well, whatever. Like I've had a couple atheist games that were, oh, the one that I've had that was the funniest that we still reference all the time is uh, at PAX in 2023. We played a late night game after PAX closed down in a hotel, and we have a player in our group that is known for doing wild things with the pit hag. Like he does pretty wild things in general, but like especially when he gets the pit hag, he has his own brand of like chaos that is like he doesn't think things through very well sometimes, but it can lead to very exciting things happening. He decided to pit hag himself into the atheist, and I think he ran out of things to pit hag, and the storyteller was like, "Okay, you're the pit hag again. Have fun." So the next night, he decides to pit hag himself to the atheist again, and the storyteller is like, "Okay, if you want this, if you want to add an evil like a loss condition to your team, go for it. It's fine." So we wake up to the final day. The demon gets nominated right away. They rush nom, not enough votes. Everybody in town realizes like, oh, we just lost the game. Well, whatever. Let's lose with style. We'll nominate the storyteller, and we get enough votes, and then the game result is good team wins. And just because the pit hag did that, and I remember the demon was so upset in that game. It was just like, why would you do that? Why would you ever do that? But that was a very fun game to be on the good team.
Yeah.
But the other one we did recently was our storyteller had everybody be a lunatic, or everybody drew the atheist token, with the exception of the demon who was the lunatic, and basically pulled everybody into a chat and said, "All right, Truman Show. You got to convince the demon the entire game that they are the demon. These are the minions that I'm telling the demon, and yeah, have fun." And like our players in that circle are all very like they're fine with being like on the outside of the joke for the entire game, and like during the reveal, they were just like, "I cannot believe this happened." But that was a really really fun experience. But uh, I don't know if I've had a bad atheist game per se, but
That's good.
just I'm very picky with when I play them
Yeah,
and who I play
and
them with.
yeah, and most people probably should be because it's just that kind of character. The funny part about that Truman Show story is we interviewed Malachi recently. He did talk about that. I assume it's the exact same story, but he told about that Truman Show atheist game, and I don't know. It was I don't know. Sound pretty crazy, but a lot of fun.
Malachi wasn't in that game,
Okay,
so just
well, that's
converging
hilarious
ideas.
because so yeah, so that's hilarious because that means that's been done multiple times. I think he ran that game according to him. So uh yeah, maybe people. I'm not actually suggesting this, but maybe people should be running more Truman Show atheist games.
As long as you know your players are not going to be upset by being like on the outside of the joke, like that could easily just have gone super bad. But
yeah, you definitely need to know your players, and obviously that's really true of a lot of atheist things. But if you're going to do something wild, know your players, know they're going to enjoy it. Don't do things just because you think it's funny. All right, last character on this list. How do you feel about Legion?
it makes me absolutely crazy every time I play in a Legion game, but I love it. Um, the person I play with most of the time has a really, really good Legion or Leech script. And the amount of times I've been hoodwinked one way or the other in that script has just been ridiculous. There was one game I was dead convinced it was a Legion game. I was losing my mind during it, and like, uh, one of the players died early, and I was just like, no, you're like just disregarding everything he's saying, disregarding everything. It's like, no, you're Legion. Like, and then like after a while, we're building the same worlds. Like, wait, why are we building the same worlds? Why are we on the same page with this? Like, why do we think these players are? It was like, oh my god, it's not a Legion game. It's like day 6 or not day 4 or 5 or something like that. And it was just like super late into the game, and Yeah, that was really fun. So there's not a lot of characters I don't like in this game. Like I think every character has a place. I think every character like fits its own little niche, and
Mm-hmm.
the only one I'm really not excited to draw is the Oho, just because I don't have fun with that character.
Oh, I I did get to be the Oho a couple times, and I thought it was fun. But yeah, I generally feel the same way. I don't know. I think the only characters I don't really like are King and Choir Boy, and I won't go into that spiel. But yeah, I'm pretty open to most characters. I am curious about Legion. I've been starting to ask people more about this, just because I've heard it's more like it's okay in online, but even better in person, like great in person. So I was curious if you have kind of a difference between online and in play. Ugh, can't talk. So I'm curious if you have thoughts on how Legion differs from online to in person.
Yeah, Legion is probably one of the biggest differences because again, like the whole social aspect of it, you can like really get a feeling if people are being especially cagey or like specific groups are like together. And in person, you have to be pretty careful with Legion of like how I don't know. It's hard to put into words, but there is a large difference, and I find in person like most things in this game to me, it is just better in person too.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know our group's really good. Online group is good about coordinating with Legion, but I can only imagine, I guess, how different that is in person. And I usually always describe it as theatrical as well, like because Legion's you know trying to put on a show for two, three, four players, almost like a Truman Show thing. But yeah, I keep asking people about it because not a lot of people have that experience, or at least not enough to comment between both in person and online Legion. And yeah, I've just been curious what people thought of that. All right, well, we have one more section here. I call it this or that. I'll just name two characters. You can interpret it and answer it however you would like. But yeah, it's just a fun excuse to talk about some characters. So we'll start out here with High Priestess or Farmer.
I would much prefer to be farmer between the two. High Priestess is fun because you gotta kind of put yourself in the storyteller's head and figure out why exactly are you going to this person? Why exactly am I talking to this person? And that's a fun like puzzle aspect in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But again, farmer, you just gotta sit back, lie, and hopefully evil tries to take you out, and then you got a friend.
Yep, or so you hope.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I I have been the evil team who tried to poison a farmer and claimed to now be the farmer. Did not work, but we
Unfortunate.
tried. All right, next couple of characters. How about empath or savant?
Ooh, that is a good one. That one probably depends on how I'm feeling that night. Savant info is very fun to go through and try and suss out. Um, but empath is also just great because it's just, do I like my neighbors? Do I not like my neighbors? Am I the drunk? Probably, but sometimes maybe not.
Yeah, I think for me, empath is kind of like my ideal role. It's laid back, but it's still you still have something to do, and you have multiple avenues to how to handle that. You can try to push on it if you got ones, or God forbid a two, or you can just kind of sit back and see how things play out. The best thing is a zero, because then you know two good players. You can just kind of go from there. Um, yeah, empath for me, I think is like my ideal role. Savant's fun, but then you have to do that work of sorting out the info. Some people like that. Me, I'd be like, eh.
It For some games the savant just hits so good. Where like when you
Mm-hmm.
can figure out your info, when you can kind of put it together and like come up with a viable solve, and people are actually like on your side and everything like that, it can
Mm-hmm.
be amazing.
Yeah. All right, next couple characters here. How about recluse or drunk?
Drunk is probably more exciting to be, but recluse is just chill. It's like, yeah, I'm evil. I look evil. It's fine. Makes sense. Like I kind of trust you now.
And it's funny in Trouble Brewing, at least in my experience, the recluse often gets trusted quite a bit. Um, funny enough, usually the most as a storyteller, the most sus thing I can do for recluse is give a fortune teller a no on them.
Yeah, honestly, like yeah, it's
I love
great.
that.
I love doing stuff like that. I love um giving a librarian a recluse ping because it's just like, are you are you sure you're not just a spy, or what's going on here? It's like
Yeah.
no, you're just recluse.
All right, couple more here, and this one's maybe slightly more spicier. How about ogre or damsel?
Oh, that is two good picks. I really like being damsel. I think damsel's super fun. It's stressful, um, but it can be really fun. And then if there's actually a huntsman on the script and you get the super rare like change, that's so exciting. I don't think I've ever been huntsman picked as a damsel, but I mean ogre is hard to argue with just because like it's probably one of the best outsiders in the game in my opinion in sheer terms of fun. Just because you pick somebody, you have a friend. If they're evil, fantastic. If they're
Mm-hmm.
not, like that's cool. You can still have a good time with that. And
Mm-hmm.
I ogre's great.
Yeah, I am very much on record as ogre being my favorite character in the entire game.
It's so good.
Damsel, I storytell way more than I play. But I think the first time I was a damsel was on a TPI stream, and it was funny because I remember having this moment of, oh, so this is how that feels. But it was fun. We did lose that game, not really to a damsel, although I think if we wanted to, I think they knew who I was, and the script had a barber on it, so I think they could have just swapped me and then do a damsel guess. But we lost regardless. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. It's a good character. I tried not to put it in all my scripts just because it feels so tempting. Yeah, it's like I like the way it plays.
Yeah, me too.
All right, a couple more characters here: Boffin or Sarah Novus.
I have actually never been to Boffin. That's one of the few characters I've yet to be.
Still pretty new,
Uh,
so yeah, makes sense.
I love the Boffin. It is like in terms of like script building and especially like world bending and stuff like that. It is probably one of my favorite minions in the entire game at this moment. Um, but Cyrano was just classic fun. It's hard to argue with that. It's like its own specific brand of chaos that is super fun. You can talk to some people if they give you some good rolls. You can lock them down info wise. You can, if somebody like outs you as a sage and they die, you can say, hey, like I'm gonna make you Cyrano was mad today, something else. So you could be something else today. It's great. And you're just like
Mm-hmm.
it mucks up information in such an interesting way.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do on at least certain custom scripts where this is supported is make somebody mad for a couple days as some kind of info roll. Then on the third day, make them mad as a drunk. It's so good.
That is super fun.
I did that to somebody with picked them as a juggler for 2 maybe 3 days, then did the drunk thing, and yeah, it's a good time.
You want to be the biggest jerk in the world, like day 6 or whatever. Just like, hey, you're the savant today. Have fun.
Yeah. I've been to Serenobus once or twice, a couple times, I guess, and I think it just dawned on me that one of the fun things is, you pick a player and then they usually change their behavior entirely based off what you've decided, and I guess there's a weird sense of power in that. um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, hey, dance,
Right.
do this thing.
Yeah, a pit hack's fun too, but if you pit hack somebody, they're like, okay, well, a pit hack changed me. But yeah, the Serenovus, I don't know, the Serenovus hits different, I guess.
Oh, it's honestly like out of all like Witch and Ceranovus are my two favorite S&V minions. Pit Hag I find is still like you're going to be one of the most pivotal roles in the game, and you can either fizzle terribly or you can like win the game almost on your own. And that's just almost too much responsibility. Like, give me a
Hmm.
Ceranovus, give me especially a Witch. I love Witch. You just sit back and get a couple Witch kills. Like, oh, you did great.
Yeah,
Witch curse yourself in Final Four and make everybody or in Final Five or something like that. Oh, perfect.
yeah. I think people underestimate too how effective it is to speed up the game by, you get extra kills, you get enough of them, you take away some executions, and that's
Oh, that's
surprisingly big.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's Good's biggest commodity is executions, and if you take away 1, 2, like you have done so much damage.
Yeah, like yes, it's good to maybe kill a powerful ongoing information role, but that's not always practical, and sometimes it's even hard because those are the players who are not nominating because they don't want to be killed by OH. All right, next couple here: Devil's Advocate or Poisoner.
Poisoner every day. Devil's Advocate is again responsibility and timing. Like it's oh,
Yeah,
I've had some fun games as Devil's Advocate. The classic waking up final 3 game over situations are great. And being able to time it perfectly to frame people is wonderful. But Poisoner just does so much damage and is so powerful. It's hard to choose DA over Poisoner.
that makes sense. And Poisoner's, for me, I think of like sort of Imp, Poisoner, and Drunk as sort of the quintessential clock tower roles. Like, I guess to me, I just associate the game with those 3 characters. Funny enough, I don't think I have a townsfolk in mind that I specifically think of. But yeah, Poisoner, always a classic. All right, so some demons here. We got Al Hadikia or Kazali.
Oh, that is a tough one. Al Hadikia is my favorite experimental demon in the game. But Kazali is so good. Again, like what Kazali does to social aspects is just fantastic. Um, the storyteller I play with a lot, his name is Joe, has a solo Kazali script that we play fairly often that is just wonderful. And it's like trying to suss out, it's like, okay, who's playing evil? Who would pick them? And like the meta, I think that evolves so much faster, like the meta of, okay, are they going to pick like people who you think they'd pick, or are they going to pick other people? And that's fantastic. But I'd have to go with Al Hadikia between the two, just because I love the theatrics of it. I love the mind games of, okay, am I gonna die? Is there an evil in this ping? And then, of course, like the amazing just blunder of Al Hadikia killing yourself on accident. It's always just a silly way to end a game that whenever it
Right.
happens, I just laugh.
Yeah, Al Hadikia. I've never played either one of these characters. I think, but uh, to hear I don't think I've ran a solo Kazali script, but it does sound interesting. I was somewhat surprised when it came out and people were worried about unfun metas like revolving around like who Kazali picks. Um, I guess I feel a little spoiled because I feel like my group doesn't usually suffer from such metas, but yeah, that sounds fun. I think some groups probably wouldn't handle that very well, but I think for a group who can, yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. Of course, I have done solo Al Hadikia scripts, and those are a lot of fun usually.
Mhm.
All right, last couple here. We got Fangu or Imp.
Between like, I think Imp is probably more satisfying to play and win as, like especially if you time a good star pass or something like that. But like Fangu is just so strong. It's
Mm-hmm.
you get a friend, you get another evil, and swinging the balance one step further is just so strong. I think between the two, I'd probably pick Imp just because classic demon, and again, like you can sell Star Pass or not Star Pass worlds in fun ways. Like I like what Imp does on scripts.
Yeah, kind of like I said, I consider it kind of like the quintessential
Yeah.
demon character in the game. Trouble Brewing, obviously, it's the only demon. Um, yeah, it's good stuff. All right, that was this or that. I'll ask just another question that kind of comes to mind. Just curious if you've had any games recently that come to mind that you just thought were particularly fun.
Thankfully, like I'm spoiled with the players I play with because almost every game we play is a blast. Um, played one last night where I drew the Kazali token. It was a solo Kazali script and made a fearmonger. And it was like, who would make a fearmonger? Like, who would actually make a fearmonger on this script? Didn't make Scarlet Woman. I was like, you know what, we're going full force on this. I picked a really good person to be Sarah Novus. It was one of their favorite roles, and they were just doing work with it. Poisoner was doing work, and I was pretty much screwed at a point because people sussed out pretty quickly, like, oh, you would make a fearmonger, so we're gonna just kill you off pretty soon here. and they were able to. The fearmonger was able to like get enough sus on the player they fearmonged. We actually like got a fearmonger win out of it. Like I was dying the next day, so it was like it's such like a clutch. Like it's like yes, this is why fearmonger is great. Like 2% of the time.
I ran a game not too long ago, and we did have a rare fearmonger successfully get their target executed. Of course, they did find out that afterwards it was a heretic game, so so that was a moment. But yeah. All right, so one last question here. So looking at the script of Bad Moon Rising, which of these characters would you like to be in real life?
To be in real life. Like honestly, like grandmother sounds pretty chill. You just gotta sit there and hang out with your grandchild and feel like, yeah, I just want to make sure you're okay. I just want to make sure you're fine with the day and like you're just there to exist. It's great. Vibe.
Yeah, yeah, I can't disagree with that. I'm trying to get out of the habit myself. Also, of I feel like there's a lot of meta. I don't play like a ton. I've already kind of mentioned. So like, I feel like my own personal metas haven't evolved much. But I'm trying to get away from just simply role swapping with my grandchild. Um, just because I feel like I don't know. I want to do something else, and also eventually somebody's just going to catch on and just claim the person or you kill the person claiming to be the grandmother.
Yeah, the fun side of it is when you can just forcefully claim somebody else, like cold call somebody's role, get lucky once, or like do like 2 or 3 people, and just be like, "Hey, I'm the grandmother. I saw you as the gossip," and they're like, "Oh my god, you're right." And it's just like, "Yeah, you're my grandchild now."
One thing I'd always
That's
wanted
fun.
to do was show the grandmother the lunatic, and I found one opportunity to do it when I knew that if I showed the grandmother as a minion, the grandmother would play along with being a minion at least for a little while. Sadly, the grandchild spoke to one of their other quote unquote minions first, and it
Oh,
didn't play out. But it was still useful information altogether, and um, yeah, that's my grandmother dream, at least as a storyteller. Although that would be fun as a player too.
yeah, I'm gonna keep that in my back pocket. That's a fun idea.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta. Well, you don't have to, but it's good if you can. If it's a player that you know who will play along with it at least for a little while, just for fun. But all right, before we go here, is there anything you would like to plug?
Uh, I do a lot of playing over on Kinky Clocktower. We stream on Tuesdays. Um, and I started playing on TPI streams on Sundays every once in a while. So yeah, out of those places, great. Just watch Clock Tower. It's great. It's a great game. Best game.
I tend to agree. Alexis, thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Then thank you all for watching. We'll be back next week with another episode of Hard Claim.